everyone, welcome again to my channel. So in this video we are going to discuss a very important topic according to the interview point of view as well as exams point of view. Okay, so this is a question that a student who is preparing for SQL must know that what is the basic difference between SQL and Plsql. Okay, so although the name of SQL and Plsql is quite same, as it is also consisting of SQL and it is also consisting of SQL, but instead of this, both of these two terms are very different from each other. Okay, so in this video we are going to discuss the major differences between SQL and Plsql that you all must know about these two terms. Okay, so let's start with the first difference between SQL and Plsql. So the very first difference is what? Here SQL stands for structured query language. Okay, but here Plsql stands for procedural language plus structured query language. Okay, so why I have put over here a plus symbol? So in next differences. Okay, now let's see the next difference between these two things. So this is a quite important difference between both of these two. Okay, so what is it saying here? SQL doesn't provide any procedural capabilities to the users. Okay, so this is a major drawback of SQL because it was lacking the procedural capabilities to provide to the users. Okay, so in order to overcome this drawback, Plsql was introduced. Okay, so this is the main reason why Plsql was produced, in order to provide procedural capabilities to the user. Okay, so it provides various procedural capabilities like conditional checking, looping, branching, etc. Okay, if a user want a particular statement to execute only if some particular condition satisfies. Okay, so you can make use of conditional checking using if else if block. Okay, so there are various kind of statements like if you want to allow looping in a program, okay, then we can for loop, while loop. Okay, if you want to allow branching, then we can make use of the switch statement. Okay, so if you are non to C language or C++ language, then you clearly know about these all concepts, that what is conditional checking, looping, branching, etc. Okay, so this is what the reason I have written over here plus symbol. Okay, that is, it is a enhancement over the SQL language. In Plsql language, okay, there is one advanced feature that is provided, that is procedural language. Okay, so it's a procedural language that allows us various procedural capabilities like conditional checking, looping, and branching. Okay, so this is what about Plsql and SQL differences. I hope so you get a quick idea that what is difference between Plsql and SQL. Okay, now we will discuss some more basic points, okay, that making Plsql more stronger than SQL. Okay, so the next difference between these two terms is what? Here you can see we can write one statement at a time. Okay, so in SQL what happens if we write you just examine this. Okay, whenever we are writing a query, we can write only one statement at a time. Okay, so while writing a query, it's not that we can write more than one statement, it will execute only one statement at a time, whereas in case of Plsql we can write more than one statement as a block at a time. Okay, so if so it's a kind of very time efficient language than SQL. Okay, in this we can execute more than one statements at a time, but in case of SQL we can execute only one statement at a time. Okay, now let's see the next difference. Okay, here just understand, server resources open each time as SQL statements pass to Oracle engine one at a time. Note this point, hence processing is very slow. Okay, as I told you, here in case of SQL only one statement can be executed at a time. Okay, so what will happen? So whenever a SQL statement will be passed to Oracle engine, every time the server will be open from which we want to get the data, will open from for every single statement. Okay, so it will open for every single statement all the times whenever a single statement is passed to the Oracle engine. Okay, so hence the processing is very slow. Now let's understand this with the help of an example. Let's say we want to execute 5 statements. So in case of SQL we will execute them one by one, right, as there is no any provision for executing them at one time. Okay, and suppose all these statements does only same work. Okay, so what will happen? The server will be open for every statement at different time. Okay, so it need to open every time for all the statements, although the working of all the statements is same. Okay, so what is happening over here? For same statements the server have to open many times. Okay, so this is a kind of very time consuming work, so hence the processing in case of SQL is very slow. Okay, so this is So if we talk about PL/SQL, in this case, the time efficiency is very high, okay, because the server resources open only once for the entire block of statements passed to the Oracle engine, okay. So in this case, if we want more than one statements to as I told you, in this we can specify a block of statements at a time. So the server will only open one for the one time and will execute all the statements at one time, okay. So that's why the processing in case of PL/SQL is more faster as compared to SQL, okay. So this is the next difference. So this is one of the most important difference between these two terms, okay. Now let's see the next difference between these. Here the next difference is what, here SQL doesn't support PL/SQL statements, okay. If we try to write PL/SQL statements in SQL, okay, while writing the SQL statements, then it doesn't allow, it will give us an error message, okay. But instead of this, if we talk about PL/SQL, in PL/SQL block we can embed various SQL statements. It doesn't give us any error, it will execute them, okay. So this is also one of the most provisions of this PL/SQL, that it allows SQL statements to be embedded within it, okay. Now let's see the next difference. So it's also one of the most important difference between these two terms, okay. So what is it saying? We cannot store intermediate results of statements to a variable, okay. So let us understand this with the different example. Let's say if we want to store the result provided by a particular statement to some variable, okay. So we do not have any provision in case of SQL language in order to fulfill this, okay. We cannot store a result of a statement to a particular variable, okay. So there is no any mechanism available in case of SQL. But if we talk about PL/SQL, in this there is a mechanism, okay. If let's say there is a table, if we want to store the student name returned by the statement, okay, whose roll number is, let's say, 2, okay. So we can do this with the help of PL/SQL, okay. So this is a structure that I have given. So it's a structure of basic PL/SQL block, okay. It is having a declare phase, begin phase, and this is an end, okay. That is showing, indicating the end of this entire block, okay. In this we can specify, we can declare the variables basically, okay. So we can declare the variable, okay, and can store a value to this variable of any statement, okay. So I have written a statement like this: select e name into a. So whatever the e name that will be returned by this statement will be stored to a. So in future we can use that value, okay. So this is also the plus point of this PL/SQL, where we can store an intermediate result of a particular statement to a variable, okay. So this is a declare phase. In this we used to declare the variables that we are going to use further in this program, okay. Now let's see the next difference between these two terms, and this is the last difference I will mention in this video. So it is also important. So it's saying we can handle errors by on. We cannot handle errors by on, okay. So in case of SQL, so all the errors, all the exceptions that are provided by the are implicit, okay. They are provided by the SQL only, okay. So we have not any provision, we have not any allowance that we can also define, we can also solve the errors that can be occur in a particular piece of code by our own, okay. We cannot give any user friendly message at the occurrence of a particular error. So we have no any mechanism in case of SQL. But if we talk about PL/SQL, there is a exception handling mechanism, okay. With the help of exception handling, we can define our own exception solutions, okay. So we can raise an exception from the begin block, okay, in a particular statement where we are thinking that there may be chances of getting an error. Then we can handle that errors by our own by using the concept of exception handling, okay. So in my further videos I will surely tell you what is exception handling, how an exception can be handled in case of PL/SQL, okay. So for this video, this is enough, okay. So in this video I hope so you get to know all the important and major differences between SQL and PL/SQL that everyone must know about these two things. And you like this video, guys, share this video to all of your friends and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon, and also like the video if you like it, okay. Thank you.